Well, hello there. My name is HW, and you are listening to the Tone Junkie Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. It's Michael Britt, MBritt, profiles,
MBritt.
all that.
It's the king of the Kemper.
I don't know if I'm king.
The Coca-Cola of the Kemper.
The Coca-Cola, the Kleenex.
The Kleenex of the Kemper. Is that an MBritt box you're playing? It is.
Yeah,
that's the Kemper. So it's been ages since you were here last.
I know. It feels like weeks.
Weeks. Literal weeks.
Days.
And you went to NAMM.
I went to NAMM.
And I'm so jealous.
Fighting off a bit of the NAMM thorax.
The NAMM thorax. I know. A lot of people got it. Maybe it's better that I didn't go. I stayed healthy.
Yeah.
Today's, you're listening to the Tone Junkie Podcast. This is episode 42, I think. Yes, I think it's 42.
I'm the best niece ever.
You're the best niece ever. And
Yeah, get a close up of those.
this is my wife's mug. But, okay. We have a lot to talk about. So much Kemper stuff. This is episode 42. Brought to you by the Tone Junkie and MBritt loaded Kemper at British Audio. If you don't have a Kemper, go get one. If you don't have a Kemper, you're not watching this video. Yeah. So we should place these shameless plugs better. Okay.
Chances are they're not going to sit through 2 hours if
right.
not a Kemper user.
That's not true. Okay, but Kemper announced all sorts of stuff.
Yep.
Obviously, they dropped the new reverbs since you were here. Did they have the new reverbs when you were here last?
I think they just came out, or
maybe they just.
I can't remember. Maybe it was right after that.
The verbs. Looks like they even are hinting at an ionosphere verb that was there that that was in some screenshots.
Yeah.
Kemper cone, Kemper cab. You were there. You talked to Christoph. Tell us about it.
So the Kemper cab is a 112 cab, and it'll use a proprietary Celestion speaker, a full range dual cone without an extra tweeter or anything like that. So hopefully it'll be a very natural sounding 112 cab that you can run with a powered Kemper, or if you don't have a powered Kemper, you'd need a power amp. But when you turn the monitor cab off, it'll automatically go into speaker cone, Kemper cone mode. Mm-hmm. Then you can tell that full range speaker whether you want it to sound like a Vintage 30, greenback. There's like 12 or 15 different cone models that you can apply to that full range speaker to make it sound like a guitar speaker.
So Celestion made speaker. They know the curve of the speaker.
Right. That's the thing about using a consistent speaker over and over, that they can apply these curves to it and know it's going to be pretty correct.
Yeah, and it's funny because we think of speakers as being flat or not flat and stuff. I heard Christoph talking about one time, like, the thing about guitar speakers is they're not flat, and they're so ridiculously not flat. And they're the only speakers like that, really.
Right.
I mean, we don't... If in any other sort of world we had speakers that were doing this, we would just say these are just terrible designs, just terrible speakers.
Right.
They don't reproduce the sound.
But if you've ever heard a direct amp profile, that's what the actual amp is doing.
Well, that's
and it's
true.
got all this extra high end. That's what the speaker
a ton.
loves to roll off.
Yeah, big time, big time. You gonna buy one of these?
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna get.
Oh yeah.
I want to put a whole wall of them up.
I would do 2. I would probably stick with 2.
Well,
stereo.
Well, yeah.
Heck
yeah.
They're good size, and they're flat, and they look kind of cool.
I'm not thinking practically about this.
You just want a wall.
I'm just thinking of the backdrop when I talk about the Kemper. I'd love to have a big. Finally, we can have Kemper full stacks.
That's true.
It's the one thing the tube amp crowd has had on us. Full stacks. We haven't had full stacks until now. This is really useful. I feel like the number one question I get is about, in terms of speakers or how I listen to the Kemper, is HW, what FR should I get? What's the best? What is the best anything? Who knows?
Yeah.
And then what will give me amp in the room sound? Because people struggle with that. They are used to an amp being way too loud, pointed at their knees, and then they get this Kemper, and they're trying to put it through studio monitors with microphones and stuff. It doesn't sound the same. This sort of solves that problem, I think.
That's the goal. I think the speakers they had at the NAMM show were prototypes, and he said they're still working on the finished speaker. And also with the NAMM police with volume, really it was so quiet and so noisy in there. I mean, the amps were quiet and the room was noisy, so it's really kind of hard to tell everything about how good they're going to sound. But I have faith in those guys for making something that's going to sound good.
I mean,
That's the hardest trick, is taking a Kemper, which has mic models and speakers simulated, and then running that through another speaker. That's just like double. It's
Right.
hard to do double speakers.
Right. That's why direct profiles are great if you're using the direct stuff. But the trouble I always run into, of even people who like direct profiles, is like, well, now it really matters how I set up the amp. Because an amp set, like if you have the same amp and plug it into to V30s or blues or greenbacks, that amp is set up way different.
Oh, yeah.
So even that's been my problem with direct profiles, and why I don't, because I bought a cab and I bought a powered Kemper after a while, and I thought, well, this is what I'll do. I'll run it all the time in here on. And that can work for me if I make the profile. But as soon as I start changing speakers,
Well, I've been reluctant to do direct profiles in the past because I really don't know what I'm giving out.
Right,
I know
right.
what it sounds like to me, but
right, you don't know
like you
that.
said,
Yeah,
they could run it through one of their speakers and say, this sounds like total dog crap.
Right, right,
And I'm
right.
like, well, you may be right. I
They
mean,
might
it
be
sounded
right
good to
with
me.
that speaker. No, of course.
But it's hard for us to solve for every variable
Mm-hmm.
on what they're monitoring on, what guitars they're putting into it. There's a lot of,
100%.
It's not a closed system. It's a lot of variables.
Yeah, 100%. That's why this is so great. Because it's going to take direct profiles. It's going to take profiles where you turn off the cab. I guess it'll do direct profiles. I don't know. I'm sure you'll be able to turn it on. It looked like they had it in the system or output settings. It was you could toggle it on and off.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked to be built that way.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about this. How amazing is it that in the box they released 8 years ago, they not only are able to put out reverbs that to me are Big Sky level, are Nemesis level, are all this stuff, top level reverbs, and yet they can also now build in like a separate built-in speaker modeling EQ curve type thing that can run a cabinet.
Yeah, I think I heard that when they first built the Kemper, they had 2 processors and they were only using less than 1. So they did build in all this room for adding stuff, adding the remote features, I mean, I can't think of any other piece of gear that you've gotten all this extra stuff that wasn't around when you first bought it.
Right.
For free.
It's crazy.
And not having to upgrade your whole hardware.
I know. I just heard someone say, like, I want to buy a second Kemper. Like, I want them to put in more features. But I think the thing is they just haven't built in everything the little box can do.
Right.
I know people would like to see a floorboard version, and hopefully one day we do. That would be very cool. I know a lot of people would like a small, just profile player, maybe the size. You know those Kemper Direct boxes, the little guy. Maybe the size of that, and make it that same shape. Oh, that would be so cool.
If it's even a remote, a remote or slightly bigger than the remote.
Right.
Like you said, you can't profile with it, but you can play and set up all your performances and everything.
You've seen that Photoshop that goes around of the remote with the axe knobs and the everything. That really is brilliant. I'd love to see something like that. And then the editor. I know that you have been just like, you just drew a line in the sand and said, editor or I quit.
Yeah, that was not me. And this is actually a really good looking editor. It's actually built into Rig Manager, so it's just like at the bottom below the Rig Manager screen, you've got looks like the kind of the Helix blocks in a row, and then you just click on any of those things and all the parameters pop up. It's pretty easy to see. Now I just hope that all of that is stable. My biggest issue is Rig Manager sometimes gets unstable when you get to the betas and stuff.
Yeah.
But that's what betas are for.
Sure.
So I get it, but sometimes I just have to get work done, so I have to kind of get on the public one again just so I can make sure stuff gets deleted and organized the way I want.
I usually keep one Kemper pretty old, and I usually never update it until I'm really like missing something that I really want.
Yeah.
Because when it's working, it's working.
Yep.
And I don't deal with remotes turning off or whatever the glitches and stuff that show up. I'm going to buy this Kemper cone. You're going to buy this Kemper cone. I think the editor, I'm really happy the editor came out because, it's been something people have been asking for. Me, I'm not sure how much I'm going to use it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I can get around on the Kemper itself faster than I can go menu diving on a screen.
Right.
Just because moving the mouse takes longer than hitting a button over here.
I will say one thing that was very cool is you could set up multiple morphs.
Oh, yeah.
You could just morph, and then boom, it was there.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some cool things that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
But I've always thought that the Helix made a lot of sense to have an editor because you have it at your feet, and it's huge. I mean, space-wise, it's large.
Yeah.
So when you put on your desk, you have to like move stuff out of the way. It makes sense to have an editor. But the Kemper has always appeared to me to be something that you put near you on a desk.
Yeah.
So I've always just used that.
Yeah. But there's people that love looking at a computer screen all day. And
I hope too that that we're going to get some unlocks of the signal chain.
yeah.
Because to me, one of the things I feel like is, I think from a software standpoint, they can put things anywhere. I think we're locked into the 4 up front, 4 in the back, only because of how the Kemper is built physically, how the unit's built. Because I've asked, why did you put reverb in this block and delay in this block? Why did you write it that way?
Typically, that's just the
the
standard, yeah.
That's the exact answer they gave. Because we wanted people to know this is where you should put your reverb, this is where you should put your delay. Because now we're 8 years in, and this unit makes sense to us. But back then it was like, oh great, you built a big green pod.
Yeah.
With a name nobody can say. You know, or what is that? A Kempner?
Kempner.
Kempner. Do you see there's a video of a guy?
And I will never use more than 4 effects preamp and 4 effects.
Right.
But there's people like you that put like 4 delays and 4 reverbs on stuff.
You caught me.
I could see that. But
I usually only put 2 delays and a verb.
I have a very old fashioned. It's so funny. I sound like an old Luddite old man, but you know, if you're putting that much effects on it, you're no longer playing guitar. It's just, and I know that's like not really cool to say in this era, but you're a keyboard player if you're doing that.
I did just. Well, I am going to tell on you here for a minute.
Okay.
Because I believe you did ask me to send you the
I did
the shimmer pad,
and I have never even loaded them yet.
Okay. Well, in your defense, you never loaded it, but it is literal keyboard sounds.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's super cool. I mean, I like that kind of stuff.
It is cool.
But it seems like when I get on stage, I'm turning reverbs down because I play in a band with a piano player and a steel player, and so there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm trying to find my spot. If I start putting too much reverb, my guitar suddenly starts moving back in the mix.
Yeah,
and so it's an ego thing.
Yeah,
I just want to be more forward in the mix. So
I hear you.
I get a little bit drier as I get older.
Reverb is I've heard it described as 3D panning.
Yeah.
So you got left, right, and then you've got more and less reverb. That's how you come forward and back. So depending on where you go. Yeah, I mean, I think, the Sunday morning stuff is super verbed out. I think there's a lot of, there's some ambient stuff that's really verbed out.
I just miss Guitar Heroes, I miss, I have a guy. So there's, to me, been one Guitar Hero in the last 5-10 years that comes out and it's like, that guy would have been like the next Eddie or the next Steve Vai or whatever. I
mean, John Mayer is probably the most influential guitar player today, I think.
Yeah. But Ian Thorne from Big Wreck.
Yeah.
That dude is scary.
In another era, he'd be up there with all those names.
Just amazing.
Yeah.
Between singing and playing the way he does. But I listen to those records just for the guitar and to be demoralized because it is so good.
Yeah.
But there's not that many. And I wish more people...
And he sings better than anyone who's played the guitar.
I know.
Pound for pound, he might be the best. He is the best singer player I've ever heard.
Absolutely.
And... yeah, because the stuff he's playing too is not easy.
No, he's a beast.
Yeah.
Like there was a pop band. My trips taking my kids to school, I get to listen to pop music because that's what my daughter listens to. Now it's hip hop, but back then it was like the pop.
Yeah, now it's mumble rap.
Yeah. Band called M83. They had a song on it, and at the end of the song, this guitar solo comes up, and I was like, "What is that? Who is that?" It's like that's a good guitar player. Like it's weird to hear that on this kind of music. And then so I looked it up, and sure enough, Steve Vai played on it. It's like I want more of that. I want more of this. If you're gonna have this kind of generic pop music or whatever, get some of these Guitar Heroes and just throw a solo at the end of it. I'll be happy with that.
There's a couple. I mean, we saw that, right? Like Van Halen is on Thriller, right?
Right. We need more of that. Van Halen could do a whole Santana album where he just has different singers and he just blows over all of them. That would be brilliant.
He should.
Eddie,
get on it.
Okay.
He should, but the Guitar Heroes, I think today, just look a lot different, and I don't think they're classic Guitar Heroes. They don't fit the mold, but when I look at like Mateus Asado, who has a signature guitar from Sir, so does Ian Thornley. Like, I mean, I mean, they're both up there on the artist wall.
Yeah.
Pete Thorne's a good example. It's like, how many of us like turn on a Pete Thorne record and we're like, this is my favorite record of all time? I mean, he's got his own stuff that he puts out, but he's on a bunch of other stuff,
Yeah.
And really, we're all big like Pete Thorne fans because he makes the most killer like demo videos with like a whole song up front that's like beautiful and well played.
Coming up with just.
I know, isn't it amazing?
I would get halfway through the drum track and go, yeah, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, and it's like it's just. I mean, what's crazy to me about that is you find videos that say top 5 John Mayer licks, top 5 Van Halen licks, top 5 Mateus Asado licks, top 5 Pete Thorne licks. Like, it's so meta that these guys are making videos, and then people are making videos about their videos, but they're hugely influential.
It is. There's an undercurrent of just really great guitar players always being found, always finding their avenues through YouTube or whatever. I just wish that whole thing would blend.
Right.
And Mateus come do solos on really big popular songs.
I know. I'm sure.
Nuno played with Rihanna. I mean, there's got to be avenues for these. Just
that's true.
I think it would just raise the level of music up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I totally agree. I'm sure he'd accept the calls.
So that's why I came here today, was to lobby for more guitar heroes on pop music.
I can't tell you how many pop producers and record company execs listen to the podcast.
Oh, sure.
You came to the best place.
Pinpoint our audience.
You really did come to the best place.
Yeah.
No, the Kemper stuff. Where else are we seeing something be supported so long after and have such value added?
Yeah.
It really is crazy.
It's nice.
It really is crazy.
I feel like we picked the right unit.
I think so.
Now, I mean, I like things about the Helix. I like things about the atomic amplifier. Like I updated my little fireboxes last week, and God, I was like, this thing sounds really good.
Yeah.
The effects are a little, not as good as the Kemper and stuff, but for quick, amp in the room sounds is actually pretty decent. Mm-hmm. There's so many, and I looked at a couple other modeler type things. There was the Moore big box that they have, and I've tried the Headrush before too. They're all. I tend to fight them more as far as trying to get the tone I want out of them. And I've never been one of the guys that just plugs into a pod and thinks, oh, that's a great sound. I always have to build my sounds from scratch.
Is Moore, did they just release another one?
Yeah, it's a big fancy colored.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of small. It's not much bigger than the remote. And it has all the amp modeling. And supposedly you can clone amps in it too or something.
Oh, right. But I saw that.
Honestly, I tried to play it at the NAMM show. And I even made a probably fairly negative comment to you about it. But the headphones were so, I don't know if the impedance was like 3,000 ohm. But they were so quiet. You'd have that thing cranked up all the way and you could barely hear it.
Really?
So it was really kind of hard to tell what it sounded like up at NAMM. Because it's so noisy anyway. But
well, that's always the thing. Like, did you try it?
It does look a little toyish.
Right.
And it didn't sound as good as Linus's piano.
Right.
So, and that's not to say it doesn't have good sounds in it. It's just the stock presets I was listening to and at the volume I was hearing, I was just like, it didn't feel real like the Kemper.
Are you using the new verbs at all?
Not yet. I've played with them a little bit at home. Still waiting for all the bugs to get worked out before I start using them live.
Yeah, so they did do that second update, and I haven't had any problems since then.
Yeah.
The knobs work again. The morphing came back. Trick for people, if you lost your morphing and you still have the original rig back up, if you just reload it, the morphing comes back.
Oh,
because if you had the version that got rid of the morphing and you saved it, it got rid of the morphing. And then now when you port it over, that morphing data is gone.
Gotcha.
It's not there anymore.
I did find a workaround for another little pet peeve I've had. So I don't usually keep my remote on at home. I leave my remote in my fly rig or on the stage stuff. So we're playing a song, and I'll think of something like, this sounds too bright. I'll look over, and if my EQ knobs are raised up in the treble, I'll think I'm going to go over there after the song and fix it. But also, when I go between songs, I'm usually changing guitars or something, so I'll turn the volume all the way down. But when you volume all the way back, it goes to tuner mode.
Right.
And so in the past, I could walk over to my rig, hit exit to get out of tuner mode, and then do my editing. Well, with somewhere along the line of these updates, the exit does not exit out of tuner mode. So I found a workaround for that. So if you're doing the same thing that I was trying to do, which was start editing when the tuner mode is in, Just take the big chicken head knob, turn it to tuner, and turn it back to browser. Or
and it stays on.
And then you can do your editing and stuff.
I see. So it's on, off, on. Got it. Oh, right, because when you engage browser mode with the thing back, it won't go.
Right.
Yeah.
The volume should still be down, but you're able to edit your stuff.
That makes sense.
So he found that little workaround for me.
It's not without
quirks. Maybe I'm the only one that noticed it, but
yeah, I didn't notice it until you told me.
So I noticed it because then I would have to immediately look at this. I can't edit anything. Walk 15 feet back to my spot, turn the volume up just a little bit, walk back. It's a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
On stage. So,
what would you like to see them put out? So they're putting out cabs. They put out reverbs. What's next? If you and me can choose, if we get a vote, we'll send in our official ballots.
I'm really easy. I mean, I would love a couple more gain pedals, and I would really love a really kick-ass chorus.
You're not a fan of the chorus in there? No. I do know what you mean. Like, as pedals have come out, like the Julia, for example, those chorus sounds are so beautiful, but they're not like choruses that have been done before.
Yeah.
They're kind of unique. They're sometimes subtle, but they sound very hi-fi in a way that I think works for chorus.
I feel like the Kemper chorus never fully takes over the tone, if you know what I mean. Like, I feel like it's always under it.
I use it very lightly and not often. So But
the tri-stereo chorus model that's in the Line 6 and the Dimension C, which is my favorite. Yeah. So I've got one of the original Dimension C pedals.
Yeah, I had one of those
and that's my favorite chorus. So that's one of the things I use my M9 in my live loop for, is that chorus sound.
So let's try to steer the community towards complaints, because it's inevitable.
Yeah.
Now that you have
an editor.
Now that we have the reverbs in the editor. Yeah. Well, not now that we have it. People are still upset it's not out yet. But now that we have it, what should we complain about now?
Oh.
Overdrives? Should we complain about
overdrives? Let's complain about overdrives.
Let's complain about overdrives and choruses. We'd like more choruses and overdrives. I'd honestly like a couple more filters.
I can see that. A little, like a RoboTalk filter would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Something adrenaline-like stuff, that would be kind of cool.
We're getting that acoustic.
But then again, that's not electric guitar. You're playing a keyboard part.
Did you try the Acoustic Simulator? Did they have that
I did not try that.
Yeah.
That intrigues me, though, because that would be kind of cool.
Has there ever been an acoustic simulator that sounded good?
I have not heard it.
I'm unaware.
I've profiled that little Boss acoustic pedal.
Right.
And I've profiled a bunch of acoustic preamps, but...
Did the Boss acoustic thing work?
No.
Yeah.
No. It sounds like that Fender that you have in there. Just like, no matter where you turn it up or how much you turn it up, there's too much ultra lows and there's no note in it.
You're talking about the Fender Acoustasonic.
No, I would never talk about that. That would be rude if I did it.
It is a guitar. It is a guitar.
It is a guitar.
Okay, what else did you see at NAMM? What was cool? What was not cool? I want to give some stuff the award or not award. So here's how we'll do it. Remember we talked... I started awarding things the badge of deluxe if it was good. Okay. Because you're aware from your daughter, maybe you've heard these. If something's basic or if a person's basic, that's bad.
Yeah.
That's not enough. Extra, that's too much.
Yeah.
But I've honed in. I believe deluxe is the badge you want.
Okay.
It's not too much, but it's better quality than basic.
Yeah.
So what's basic? What's deluxe? What's extra at NAMM? What'd you see? Let's talk about
it. I didn't get to see it, but the thing I was really intrigued by was the Thorne PT15 IR amp. Mm-hmm. And talked to John Seward a little bit about it, and he said I should come check it out for sure. And that whole concept intrigues me because these are tools. These are all tools. Mm-hmm. I use the Kemper because it's a good tool. I use the Helix when it works for me for whatever job I'm doing. But there's guys that love guitar amps, and I think that is cool because you have a real guitar amp with 3 channels. You've got all the speaker stimulation you need, and it's you can still run a little stage volume if you want. And you got IRs you can assign to each channel. You can have a open back IR on the clean channel and a closed back on the dirty channel. So it's a really, I like where he's going with that thought.
I don't want to take all the credit for talking about an amp with built-in IRs on the Tone Junkie podcast.
That was the death of the power amp episode, or the guitar amp episode.
Yeah, and I think I've mentioned it other times, but I don't think it hurt.
Yeah.
I don't think it hurt.
You can take credit if you want. I'm sure John watches this religiously.
John is, I can see when people listen.
Yeah.
And by far one of the most loyal listeners. That
would be a deluxe thing if I got to play that.
I think that's deluxe as well.
And
now, the price, to me, is a bit extra.
I didn't even look at the price.
So it costs about the same as buying an amp and a torpedo box to kind of do that thing. Yeah. But it's the first one. It's an integrated unit. Also, it has features that I think buying the two units separately don't have, which is you can switch the IR per channel.
Right.
You can do that stuff. And so there's programmability there. And you can still run a cab.
Right.
Which you can do with some units.
And that's the thing. I feel like all these other units are missing something. Like they're missing something that makes it a little bit more of a hassle to use as opposed to the Kemper. Like if it just had this, like the sewer IR loader, whatever, the reactive load IR.
Yeah.
Great box. It seems like it's really great. It is not an attenuator though. You can't run partial cab volume to a cab, so it's missing the attenuator, and I believe it's also missing a quarter or XLR out. You still have to have a DI. It's like, I would just incorporate a DI into it.
Yeah, it seems like the evolution of that product was first reactive load, and it was reactive, not just a load box,
Which I
important.
think is fantastic.
And then add on the IR thing. I bet at some point we'll see a third one
with attenuator,
like a deluxe version, especially because you have the ability to go out of the cab, right? Or go out of that PT15 head. Mm-hmm. This is the first one like it on the market.
Oh yeah.
So I'm sure there's a bit of let's test the market here.
And even the aux box is great. I watched all the demos on that. I'll probably get one of those eventually. But there's no XLR out. You still have to run that into a DI or
that's true.
Or balanced. It seems like that would be a no-brainer. But
I agree.
They probably have a reason that they do that, but I don't know what it is.
I guess, but why not just put, what do you call the XLR that can take the 1/4 inch as well?
Combi jack.
Yeah, why not just put one of those on everything?
I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense. I have the aux. I've used it a bunch. It's a cool unit. It's cool that it does that. I do think
it does have the attenuator though, so
it does. It does, yeah. And it's great for that. The only thing the aux doesn't have, which to me is a little bit silly, why didn't they also make it an IR loader? Because now the Boss Expander is out, this new tube amp expander. Did you see that?
I did not see that.
So this is a box where Boss is saying, hey, check this out. Use this alongside your tube amp to give it more features. So it's an attenuator. It also can run IRs, and you can send the IRs out while you listen to your cab on stage. It's functionality that we're about to have with the Kemper with these new cabs.
Right.
It's functionality we kind of do have with the Kemper with an existing cab right now. It's functionality that is sort of in the aux box. It is in the aux box. It's just you can't run your own IRs. You have to use the aux. Which to me, the aux is great at what it does. You don't have. I love the aux because from a consumer standpoint, you don't have to create your own IR. I think the downfall of the aux is that you can't say that your signal is going to be pretty much the same on stage or as it is now as after you get an aux. So what I mean by that is, let's say you have a rig you love. Mm-hmm. You love your like your third power cab, right? And that's your favorite cab. Well, with some of these other units, you could make IRs of that cab, and you can then send that IR front of house and still have your cab on stage with you.
Right.
You still got the amp up there. You haven't sacrificed anything, but you've got the consistency now of having your own IRs and IRs of that exact cab. That's why I've talked about this extensively of like, I'm glad these units are here because I've been saying, like I said on that other podcast, if I was a cab maker right now, I'd be selling all my cabs with an IR pack that costs $100, $200, way more than any IR on the market. I'd have an exhaustive, IR library for this exact cab. And I'd be selling it to people like, buy this cab, you get this added value. If you rebuy it used from somebody else, you don't get it. So it encourages people to buy the cab new. And then you have the expertise of this cab's supposed to sound like you made the IRs. But then people can go, I have my cab, I love it, and I know I'm going to get the same tone by using these IRs, it's actually IRs of my cab, rather than flicking through, no offense to anybody who sells IRs, but rather than flicking through a pack of IRs going, well, what sounds best to me? Because none of it's going to sound like your cab unless you have a cab that they
Well, and that's the problem I always have with stock cabs in the Line 6 or wherever. And I love having the ability to load my own IRs in it because I've shot them. I know it's my mic blend, even though it's a mono signal. I've got two mics. So every now and then I'll get an amp that I think maybe I just want to go on the road with a real amp. So I've got this Top Hat. I've got this 67 Pro. Yeah. But I sit at home. I'm sitting playing real amps most of the time. And I love them. Yeah. And trying to get those into the Kemper is the trick, sometimes because some amps love to be profiled and some don't. But I'm always looking for boxes like the Reactive Load, or I'll check out the Boss one. I did not even have that on my radar. But
I think there's some other things in there too. I want to say there's like a compressor or something that you can apply. I don't really. I'd have to look at it, but
But I mean, if you get something for $500 that takes the place of a cab with an IR loader, maybe an attenuator, that's it's a brilliant piece of gear.
I will say about the Sur Reactive Load, it's half the price of an aux.
Yeah.
So it's pretty attractive. I think. You
absolutely.
know what I mean? I mean, I think it's
and DIs are $80.
Yeah, for what it is.
$100.
Hey, that's a complaint about the Stomp. Is why are there no XLR outs on the Stomp? Because now I need to have a DI box. I'm even seeing people.
I can see it on that. That box is so small. That would really lose some real estate. But go ahead, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, I've even seen people posting on like the boards and the forums and stuff. What's the best DI to pair with my Stomp? It's like, we're too deep.
Yeah.
We need to back up. Everyone just back up.
Did you see the question that I posted on Instagram when you were asking for your podcast?
I saved the question for us because I put it out there and you asked the question, why do we obsess about gear? Was that the question? Yeah. Why do we obsess about gear?
Because we can. I mean, at the end of the day, I think, because I obsess about gear, and I'm really OCD, and I'll spend hours looking at speaker EQ curves and all this stuff. And I know that I do that, and then at other times I think, why do I do this at all? Because the whole goal is to play guitar. And so I'll definitely have my palette.
I thought the goal is to get chicks.
Well, I'm already married, so that
Me too.
check, and then move on to just guitar
Now we're
gear.
back to playing guitar.
Exactly. I feel like it's all extra in a bad way. I mean, it's play.
Yeah.
I mean, I've played gigs where my guitar tone was not very good, and I had just as good a time. It comes down to the part.
Right.
Play the right part.
Right.
And your tone is almost secondary. Because, I mean, I've heard people play on somebody else's rigs, and they sound great because the part they're playing is so good.
Right.
So obsessing about guitar tone is all fine and dandy, but at the end of the day, play a good part.
I wanna go down this tangent, but let's recap from NAMM. What was deluxe? The Sur PT15.
Yeah.
We're gonna say that's deluxe.
Yeah.
We're gonna say I'll call the Reactive Load deluxe because I think at the price point it's really good. Could have a couple more features, sure. The Boss thing, I haven't tried it, so from a quality standpoint, I'm not sure. But what it says it does, I'm a big fan, and I like people mixing in the digital stuff. And I think Boss is a great person to release that unit because we wouldn't trust them to do an amp, but we might trust them to do something that sits after my amp or something.
Yeah.
What was the most basic stuff you saw?
There's a lot of just guitars that just look like I would never play them. I'm a big fan of the exotic guitars now because I've gotten 3 of those now.
You brought one over.
And I'm a huge fan of Tom and John's guitars too, Tom Anderson and John Sewer.
These exotic ones, from what I played of yours, and you had changed the pickups. I haven't heard the original pickups. You said the original pickups are really nice.
Yeah.
You put them in a different guitar.
Yeah.
But playability, I was jealous.
Yeah, it's a nice Strat.
Sounded better than my Goldie for sure.
It's a nice Strat.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 Strats now and a Tele, and love those guitars. So that was another highlight, is just seeing those guys. And Petty John, I've got that Petty John Gold pedal now, which I like a bunch. So I talked to those guys. Atomic has a couple new amp models in their amplifier series, and they sound better. So hopefully they're going to be following in Kemper's steps and improving some of their amp modeling as time goes by too.
So can we call the Acoustasonic extra Is it a little too much?
Yeah,
it's a little. So. It's a little too much.
I get what they're going for,
Yeah.
and I used to have. There was a Godin, the A500 or whatever. It was like just an acoustic, and to me, I think it might have had an electric pickup too, but I just found the acoustic sounds just to be not good enough. And I've got a Tom Anderson Crowdster, and I'll put that thing up on stage any day of the week. It sounds like an acoustic, but it's got all this body, even though it's a thin body guitar. But I think if you try too hard to make it acoustically resonant and all that, I don't think it sounds as good.
I brought it home and I said to my wife, "What do you think of this guitar?" And she said, "That looks like a toy that you bought for one of the boys."
Okay.
And I was like,
I can see that.
I can see that too. But I will
like the
say,
idea of it. I'm not
I
a
do
fan
too.
of the sound.
I actually think it's really well crafted.
Yeah, it looks.
I think it's. I love that they inlaid the top and they did all this. There's a lot I like about it. I just don't love it.
Yeah. The Taylor booth had a new guitar called the Grand Pacific.
Oh, I saw it's a J style.
Yeah, it's like a slope shoulder.
Yeah.
I played one of those. It was just phenomenal.
Really, it sounded good.
And you can't see it in the pictures, but like the edge of an acoustic, where the body and the sides meet.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just too sharp there, and it kind of you get the red lines in your arm shirt.
Yeah.
It has just enough of a rollover there. It's not like the Fender thing where it's just huge curve, but it's really comfortable to play, comfortable to sit on. But I would give that my deluxe as well, that Grand Pacific.
I'm going to have to try one of those out because I think a lot of people, everybody loves Taylor for their playability.
Yeah.
Some people feel like the sound is a little thin, bright, and they want those Martin, that sort of Martin low end. But everybody knows like a slope shoulder J style guitar there. It just kind of has that mid-range, folky, earthy sound that,
I think some of the bashing on Taylor too is, their pickup, that expression system, I've never been a big fan of that.
Yeah.
And also just the Elixir strings that they always ship with Elixirs, which are the brightest strings you can get.
Right.
So I think just putting phosphor bronze on Taylor's warms them up considerably.
Yeah. I noticed that pickup, that expression system, it's a love or hate thing. People love it or hate it.
Yeah.
They really do. It is, but they've doubled down on it.
Yep.
And I hear they sell a guitar or two, so I think they're okay.
They're not hurting.
You said something really profound last podcast that I was thinking about, and it goes with this obsessing about gear thing. You were pointing out that maybe it's really, these Sunday morning guys can really take it to a new level because it's a consistent venue. It's quiet. It's in ears. They take time to set up. Like that's when you can really get into the minutia of like, do I hear a difference live between this Big Sky and this other algorithm that sounds kind of like it?
Right.
Is it more fun to talk about the guitar than to play the guitar? Is that why we do this? Is it because we can't always play the guitar, so we just look at it on our phones? Do you think the internet has something to do with it?
All of that, yeah. I mean, I think I talk about it with my buddies because to me it's the search. You want to have a better tone or whatever, and then you hear a sound, you get inspired by that, and you think, how do I get that? And I went and saw some great guitar players this last week. I can't play like any of them. I saw Ariel Posen, Josh Smith, Andy Wood. I mean, they're just guys that can play circles around anything I could ever do.
Did you see the Venerum Tube Screamer?
I did. I would give that a deluxe too.
Was Josh Smith?
I didn't get to hear it, no, but it looked really cool.
Yeah. I
don't know how you could go wrong with those two.
Yeah.
And the big red, bright, sparkly Tube Screamer looks kind of cool too.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
It's they have the two new Tube Screamers, the Vemurum and then the whatever the red one is. Just a limited edition hand wired TS9.
Okay. But it's sparkly?
Red sparkly.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. I see a Tube Screamer in your future.
Might have to get one of those.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, it's all of those things. I mean, look what we're gonna do today, right? You came over. We tried out a guitar for a while. Yeah. It was fun.
Tried out two Kempers together.
Yeah, we put two Kempers together with one remote.
Yeah.
Which I'll have a video on that shortly for people who want to know.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk about this stuff. And then we're going to go eat some fried chicken and talk about it some more.
Probably.
This is a...
Because, I mean, I passed by booth after booth after booth of strange-looking guitars or amps. I mean, at some point, walking through there, I heard what I thought was a really good tone. I was like, what is that? It was a Black Star amp. I've had one Black Star amp that I've owned and got rid of it. But it sounded good over there. I mean, it's like it's almost secondary if you've got a good player and a good part.
Right.
But it's still fun to talk about it because you always think you're going to learn what the magic bullet or, finally learn what the magic is.
And I think the trap amount now more than ever is there's more content about guitar than ever.
Yeah.
And I know for me, like as a dad and a husband, if I go downstairs and go into my guitar room, it's like I'm working. I'm away from my family. I'm doing my thing. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm shooting a video, but maybe I'm not doing any of that. Maybe I'm just playing the guitar. Mm-hmm. I'm like away from my family. But when I go upstairs and my kids put on, Peppa Pig or PJ Masks or Mario or whatever kids are into, mumble rap.
Yeah.
You just gotta, it's like maybe you pull out your phone. You're kind of still present with your family. You're all watching TV. Maybe you're not into it. The access to like guitar content is better. And let's face it, a lot of this content is pointed towards people selling stuff.
Yeah.
And communicating why you need this next thing. Why the next tube screamer is the best tube screamer. Why you need another.
And that's one good thing about the Kemper is it stopped me from looking at pedals quite so much. I still look at guitars. I still look at amps. I tend to try to find amps for the Kemper that aren't necessarily the new amps. Mm-hmm. Because I don't really want to take money out of manufacturers' pockets. Yeah. But B, I just find I'd rather profile an older amp or one that's not being made anymore and kind of prolong that thing's life.
Yeah.
Not out of any, just because some people they're usually getting harder to find, and I'd rather have a record of it and a way to play it. Anybody can go buy a brand new, amp from Guitar Center, new AC-15 or whatever. Right. I think the Transformers has started going downhill over the years too. All the CE, regulations and stuff to get that CE code to ship overseas. You got to prove that you're making your stuff a certain way, and I don't think Transformers have benefited from that. I think they all sound bright. Right. All the modern Transformers. So I prefer older amps for that.
It's funny you say that. One of the amps that I get a lot of requests for, and I have never done, because to me it's like, why would anyone want that? You could get them everywhere.
Right.
Is the Hot Rod Deluxe.
Yeah.
People are always like, and it comes from a place of like, I have one, it sounds great, or I used to have one and I always liked it. But I hear what you're saying. About prolonging sort of an amp's life, like that Pro Reverb you've got.
I got a nice one.
You're digging that.
And I've actually I got it fixed in the shop. So
okay, good.
Yeah. So I made some profiles of it the other day that I will probably keep profiling it until it gets where I want it. But I have time with that amp. I'm not getting rid of it, so I don't have to flip it anytime soon.
Yeah. Old amps are incredible. They really are. Do you think, is it hurting players? Is that why or I mean, on the one hand, we started this by saying, like, I think the guitar heroes of today are on Instagram, on YouTube and stuff, right? So that's where there's attention. Mm-hmm. Is it hurting musicianship that we kind of can get our fix by looking at gear and watching stuff on the internet rather than listening to a record on vinyl, scratching it, wearing down the needle by playing it over and over while we figure out the part, turning it on slow-mo so we can hear the notes, Yeah. Is that hurting musicianship?
I would say, part of me wants to say yes, it is, but honestly, I don't think it is. There's more and more kids that are picking up all these great guitar tones and playing parts, from these classic things. I think there's going to be a whole generation of kids that have learned to play on YouTube, and they're going to be far ahead of what I was at that age, because how do I play this song? Type it in, it shows you exactly how to play it. Yeah. Now, whether it's right or not,
sure, you
can figure that out later, but I've gone to YouTube to try to learn songs if I had to learn a bunch of songs real quick for a gig.
Yeah. I do it all the time. There's new stuff, like church stuff that comes out, and it's so riddled with delay and reverb. I'm like, it doesn't sound like a guitar.
If anything, people just need to make sure they get out and play with other people. I think that's where they're musically stunted, if anything.
Right.
Because I may know how to play all these diminished scales, but if I don't know what context to put them in or when to use them, when not to use them, and all that, and a lot of that just comes from playing music that's not just programmed or just, I don't know,
Yeah.
a little bit more free.
I know what you mean. Is the guitar dying? Is the electric guitar dying?
No, I don't think so.
I know, isn't that ridiculous?
No, I mean,
It's never been like more vibrant, innovative.
there have to be just millions of YouTube videos of people playing guitar and teaching how to play. And,
I know.
I mean, it's covers, and it's just, there's a bunch of guitar players in the world.
And is there ever been better guitars?
No, I mean, you can, for $400 or $500, you can get an import guitar that plays better than anything you could have bought 30, 40 years ago.
That exotic you just brought over plays better than guitars that are twice as much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like $2,000 is a lot of money, but what you get for $2,000 is arguably the best among the greatest guitars. Like, there's no professional in the world that you could hand some of these $2,000 handmade American guitars to. I mean, of course, they use CNCs and stuff.
Right.
But there's all sorts of guitars in the $2,000, $2,500 price range that you could hand to anybody, and no one would be like, "This is not a pro level instrument."
Right.
It might not be their preference. They might like a little different body style or this or that.
Yeah.
But there's a guitar there in that price range for them. You know, it almost seems to me that it's.
Well, I look at that guitar for $2 to $22 or whatever you can get it used for, and then I look at like some of these brand new Gibsons that are still asking $2,500 for a kind of a production made guitar, not a handmade.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they're made mostly by hand as far as everything's not CNC, but I don't know. I trust some of these other smaller boutique things just because the consistency is way better.
The consistency is a big deal.
Yeah. I can pick up any Anderson and know exactly how it's going to play. Sewer, Exotic, there's just a bunch of those brands that are just great.
Yeah. So what's next when you move on from Kemper?
Why do I have to move on from Kemper?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I'm making presets for the HX Stomp this week and learning some more stuff on that. And it's you have to learn all these boxes, and it's not
right.
I can learn just enough to get by, or I can learn a little bit more to make it better. And the IRs are the key to that. And I'm stumbling on some really decent IRs right now. So
I'm really happy to see the tube amp industry sort of embracing some digital stuff, because it's 50, 60, 70-year-old technology, really. I mean, a lot of the circuits that are being referenced were around in the 50s and in the 60s. I mean, and then sometimes it's like we like the modifications that happened in the 70s, right, to Marshalls and stuff. But there's some modern classic stuff, but there's very few companies still really engineering tube amps.
Right.
Still being innovative that way. And I've said this before, and hopefully this has rubbed people the wrong way, but there's a handful of companies that I think are still being very innovative just in the tube amp world, like just actually making new circuits, new things. And the result is maybe amps that could have existed back then. Right. A circuit that had to come out could have existed. But I'm really excited to see these better solutions come out with, IR players and stuff, because why shouldn't, fine, if tubes are how we get the tone, that's fine, but not going direct is kind of crazy. Every other instrument is direct.
Right.
Every one, except for the drums.
Well, and stage volume is the biggest thing. I can think my Fender, Pro Reverb sounds just amazing in my house. I mean, it may be too loud to go play it at Third and Lindsley or whatever.
Too loud to play in every church.
Yeah.
And
so, I mean, I think that's what's driving it more than anything. This push to IRs and to digital things. It's just volume. Nobody wants to be blasted by that kind of volume.
Yeah.
I don't know how drummers keep getting away with it. I mean, they put them in shells,
Honestly, it's one of the things I think is worse for the tube amp is that, I mean, if you think about, like, millennials are flocking back to cities, whereas people used to move out of cities to start families.
Yeah.
Now they want to go back. They don't mind being in a city. Well, in cities is more dense housing.
Right.
You can't have a loud tube amp in an apartment. You just can't.
Yeah.
You get in trouble. People come knocking on your door. They complain about you.
Yeah.
And we're still kind of using these speakers that just need to be loud to be heard. And it's like, I got kids upstairs, man. I gotta, or my ears hurt.
And I've seen like big rock guitar players that have like a really nice big amp and they're running it on like 2. Like, you're not even, is that on? It's
Right,
like,
right. Maybe.
you make it work for, you throw a mic in front of you, you make
Right.
it work great, but is it really that amp? That amp's not really being pushed. It's not really imparting its magical tone on anything because it's anemic. You're not running enough voltage through it. And doesn't mean it doesn't sound good. That's just not what amps are made to do.
Yeah.
Then you get people that just plug into a Princeton and crank it up to 5 or 6. And it's like, oh, now it's breathing. It's doing what it's supposed to do.
And it's a beautiful sensation when it is, and you're in front of it, but you just can't put that everywhere.
No. Most guys that I see on the road that use amps, they're running it at such a low volume, or they're blasting them, but it's on the back of the stage and just killing everybody in the catering tent. It's like works, but you're killing people, and that are trying to eat. But I just see so many uses for like a Kemper.
I think the practicality of how small guitar amps were in the very beginning is the thing that's delayed its growth, or its progression. You can't take a B3 and a giant Steinway Grand. You just can't. There's no. It's not an option. There's even. Well, I think who used to was it? It was Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I mean, they would have a bunch of stuff out, but there's not really a level you can get to where it's just easy to bring that stuff. Like, we'll just bring it anyway. Like, we've got roadies and stuff, especially now, right?
Right.
And it's to the point where, the big example people use is that Taylor Swift's whole band went right to the Axe, right? Because they're concerned about putting on a show, not about like the guy having the amp right there, right?
Carrie Underwood's band.
Yeah. That's what I meant.
Yeah, but they're both on Fractal stuff.
Yeah, because the show is more important, you know? And I think it's because one, bass amps were so heavy, and because pianos are so huge, heavy, and all these keyboards, those things went direct fast because they have to. I actually think what's been hurting us is that amps were only about 100 pounds. You could throw it in your car. You could drag it upstairs, and that was rock and roll. And it's turned into this slow adoption. And really, we're like, with the exception of the Kemper, in my opinion, I think we're behind everybody else. Like, can you imagine if we had accepted digital technology as like a viable alternative, like earlier? We would have had more companies doing more R&D to get there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I love the Helix. I think the Helix can be better at what it is. Tonally, like feel-wise.
Yeah.
I can be tricked, and I have been tricked by the Helix in a mix, by the Helix. Is this a Kemper? Is this a Helix? But feel-wise, there's just a couple things. To me, it's the decay of the note is not quite right.
Yeah.
And I'm just going, that they're gonna get it. They will get it. Like, we're one iteration away from me going, can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
No compromise.
Right.
But to me, it's like, what right now we're still at a little bit of the level of what are you optimizing for, right? What's the weakness of the Kemper?
Right.
Well, it's a mic'd up tone. I can't get amp in the room sound. I got to do this or I got to do that. Or it's not as portable as it could be, or it doesn't have these things that may or may not be a negative to different people. To me, it's the same thing with the Helix, same thing with Axe, right?
Yeah.
There's negatives that might not be a negative for you, might be a negative for me, could be a negative for me, might not be one for you, but they're great.
To me, it's what feels like you're making the fewest amount of sacrifices for all the benefits you're getting. With the Kemper, you're getting the benefit of your tone you want at any stage volume. You're getting the benefit of it having the effects now where you're not sacrificing effects. The morphing functions, the remote being as small as it is. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons to like it. And now the reason of it not sounding as good as a real amp is almost non-existent. I mean, it feels and sounds like an amp that's mic'd up somewhere. I used to tour with a Veta, and at the time I thought it was fine until one day we were rehearsing for a gig and I plugged into my Matchless and I thought, oh, that feels like an amp again. And so then I never went back to the Veta.
Right.
I went from real amps that I truly love to the Kemper, and I still love those amps, and I got amps that I love. But every time I think I'll take them out on the road, I think that's just a lot of crap to bring. I have to bring my microphone stands, my microphones, my baffles, all that stuff. And do I really want to do all that for that 3%, difference in tone?
Yeah.
And the answer is usually no. I'd
Right.
rather do what works for me.
There's a lot of things you're optimizing for
Yep.
when you're doing that, and tone's not the only one. Or else I'd bring a Leslie cab for my chorus effect
Yep.
that I use for 26 seconds.
So what other questions did we have from people about Kemper that we didn't answer last time?
Oh gosh, what did we have? Let's see. Let me quickly pull this out. Actually, there were some leftover.
Somebody was asking me about the tube shape and stuff like that. I hardly ever touch the tube shape.
Yeah.
Or the bias, really.
You were telling me that you want an amp with definition
and clarity. Yeah.
When are we going to get that? When is Kemper going to make a tube amp with definition?
Yeah. No need.
No need.
No need.
Okay, here we go. Speaker cables. Do the same rules apply as instrument cables? Do some have tone loss? Maybe. I don't know.
Probably.
I didn't screen these before. What's the best way to profile your amp and pedals?
We do things very similarly as far as miking it with a 57 and some sort of ribbon mic.
We do.
But that's not new to, that's not just us.
Yeah.
That's an industry standard around Nashville.
Right.
And even, I see people on stage at Oxbox thing, and they've got
Right.
a Royer and a 57. And that's just kind of normal. Just use whatever mixer you can submix those two mics in.
Right.
It's more how loud you're running. I think volume is one of the biggest things that changes things.
Right.
You can profile really quiet, or you can profile where you're annoying the neighbors. And I tend to profile where I'm annoying neighbors.
Right. Totally. I would say if you're doing it at home, get the best gear you can. And I would say, like, realistically, if you're doing it, realistically, go into a studio, because I think or somewhere you can isolate the amp sound, because I think one of the hardest things is you've got to hear what that microphone's hearing.
Right.
Because if you get the microphone placement right, whether it's just an SM57 or it's two mics summed to one or whatever, if you want to do your amp and you want it to feel right at home, get some headphones. Or try to put the amp in another room with some mics, maybe throw a blanket over it, get the decibel level down. But somehow that you can, like, hear what the mic is hearing.
Not through the headphones.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it'll get so loud in the room.
Right.
And I've done
it'll
some
bleed
where
through.
it's
Yeah,
right
yeah.
behind me. But I've got those in-ear monitors that
Yeah.
try to close up, but
Right.
it's still, you're hearing so much low-end woof in the room.
And that can be trial and error too. You could just place it on, profile it, and then see how it sounds after.
Yeah.
The next thing I would say is just start by duplicating whatever you do live.
Yeah.
Because then if you take the Kemper live, it'll feel familiar.
Yeah.
And then you can play with stuff and try to improve upon it there. No need to be very complicated. And I'm not a huge fan of sending it into an interface.
Yeah, I try to take all that stuff out of the equation.
Yeah.
Just one less thing for the Kemper to have to fight through.
Yeah.
I find that just going into a studio, first time we ever went into a big recording studio, I could be in the room with my speaker and it is just blowing the doors off, right?
Yeah.
And I think, God, this is loud, and it's mic'd up and everything. I walk into the control room and I hear the just strumming of the chord, and it sounds like it's got 50 blankets over it. It's like, how does it go from this loud, resonant, wide open sound? And it's just all the cabling and copper and preamps and all this stuff it goes through. It kind of shrinks it down a little bit.
Are you missing something in the Kemper? What are we missing? Well, we talked about the chorus.
The chorus is my biggest thing.
So the built-in effects could be built out more.
Now, the rotary speaker I love, and I love the
Really?
delays, and the reverbs are nice now. It's mainly the chorus. That's my biggest drawback. And I wish there were a couple other options to the Tube Screamer. As far as I know they have the shapers, the recti shaper and the soft shaper and all that, but some overdrive pedals just have like the Klein has a mid-range thing that's unique to that. It'd be kind of cool to have something like that.
I've done some experimenting with taking the pedals and running an EQ after it and assigning it to the same foot switch. So when you turn it on, it's like the Tube Screamer with an EQ and trying to take the mid hump out. I tried to do that, and what I got was something that sounded very much like a Greer Lightspeed, which is a very transparent overdrive. It's sort of one of these ones that people say it sounds like your amp with a little more dirt.
Yeah.
Just sort of this generic sounding grit gets added. I think there's probably a lot of capability in using EQs and the built-in stuff, but it's hard to get to right now.
Yeah.
I'd love to see a King of Tone. I'd love to see a Blues Breaker style overdrive in there. And a King of Tone could be it. I'd love to see a Klon, a Timmy.
I mean, I put those on the profiles when I'm doing it, but it would sure be nice to be able to just add it to one. Save me a lot of time.
One thing I've thought is, could I, if the Kemper were smaller, if there was like a player unit or something, and I could rig up this MIDI rig where one Kemper just has direct profiles of pedals at different settings, and I could run it into another Kemper with profiles of the amp, and I could be like, here's a King of Tone at a low setting running into.
This is the part where you just need to start playing and stop thinking.
Yeah, right, exactly. It could happen. Let's see. Thoughts on putting power amp inside a passive KPA or pedal power amps. Have you experimented much with power amps that are out there for running a passive Kemper or just running speakers?
Now, I've used a lot of different power amps or amps for power amps. I have not tried like the Ritter or the ones you install in the back of the Kempers yet.
Sure.
But I do tend to prefer like my Fryette power station because there's something about how tube amps push tone. They just it feels more percussive than a linear power amp like the one that's in the Kemper.
Right.
Tubes just push at a different way.
Yeah.
It's more whack instead of evenly ramping.
Right.
And you can feel it breathe a little bit. So I prefer either tube amp, just going to the effects return of a tube amp. I used a Mesa Lone Star for a while. I used an EVH 5153 just for a 100-watt power amp.
Right.
I got good results with all that.
Yeah.
Now, granted, you're going to get a little bit of a low-end buildup because I do because I'm using a 212 with the cabs off. Sometimes on, but I don't know. It's whatever works for you.
I did this question in the last episode of the podcast, but I want to ask it to you. When was your no going back moment with the Kemper?
It was pretty early on, 2013. I profiled my amps and profiled all my basic sounds, and then I was trying to EQ things, and I was EQing to headphones, and I was EQing to everything I EQ'd and it sounded different. And so then I took it to Soundcheck, which is a rehearsal facility here.
Yeah.
And rented a room with a PA, and I sat out in front next to the PA, and I was playing my Kemper through a PA, so I could kind of tell what worked and what didn't. And then once I EQ'd it for that and did the first weekends of gigs, I think that's when I was sold, because then it was all just micro fine tuning, and then I haven't really looked back since.
Right.
It's once you hear what it can do through a big PA, you're like,
wow,
that's what I've been trying to get all these years.
And the rest is history.
Yep. And then you can just add everything's gravy on top of that. The new effects, new amps that I can get, all that stuff.
Did I ask you this? What was the first amp you profiled?
Oh, yeah, it was my third power.
That's right.
Because that's what I had on the road with me at the time. And it's a great amp still.
Someone wanted to know what donut I got at Dinkles, which is like, you have to really listen to the podcast to know what that means. I got a lot of donuts at Dinkles. Pedal boards into the Kempers. Yes, no, do's and don'ts.
I tried it when I first got my Kemper, and I felt like the Kemper has a built-in kind of compression to it that didn't serve some of the pedals. Like hitting goosey game pedals into a Kemper doesn't always work. Now, that being said, I've had responses from Nashville session guys that use their pedal boards into a Kemper all the time.
One trick that has surfaced on the boards that I'll just share for people listening. If you're having a problem, some people say this helps. If you're having a problem with pedals into the Kemper, you can bypass the input stage with this sort of workaround. Instead of plugging your guitar into the input, put an effects loop in slot A. Now you can use the return jack on the back for that as your input. I'm not sure if the tuner still works at that point. Probably not. Plug your pedal board back into that return. Now there's a level on the loop. If the higher you turn up that loop, the more pad is going to be on the return jack, because the loop allows you to add decibels to the send, right? So it goes out, hits the effects, comes back. Now it's got to pad it back down. So if you don't send anything out, if you don't use the input and you turn that up, that's how many decibels it's padding the input now, or the return coming back. I've heard people say that they don't like some of their drive pedals in front of the amp, but that helps. So to me, that's like turning, like what I've tried to do with the Stomp, playing around with the Stomp, is I want to put a lot of pedals in front. And I've tried, well, what happens if I shoot an IR really bright? Like, what if I take out like the bottom end and shoot it bright? Then I can make the amp block more neutral. And that way, when I throw pedals into it, I don't get a lot of harsh high end, like you would from a bright amp.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure if it works on the HX stuff. I'm not really sure if it matters.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it's sounded fine. I found that you can kind of do it anyway. You know what I mean? They all have a character about them.
Yeah.
That's what I noticed about the Stomp. I noticed it about the Kemper. There's sort of a character about it. Some people maybe are just going to feel like it's a characteristic of the amp or the profile.
I think it depends on the profile too.
Yeah.
Like some profiles just are inherently more compressed and
Right.
don't react as well with pedals in front.
Sure.
When we did that Christmas tour this past year, Jeff, who plays with Phil Vassar, he uses 2 or 3 pedals in front of his Kemper, and it sounded fantastic.
Yeah.
So it can work either way.
Yeah.
It's kind of whatever you're just used to and whatever you're set up for.
I think you got to go in blank and go, here's a thing that can sound like amps, but it might respond a little differently.
Yeah.
So I've maybe got to make some adjustments. Maybe I need to adjust the brightness. Yeah. Maybe I got to turn this thing a little brighter and turn my pedal a little more neutral, or maybe I've got to turn this thing more neutral, just like you would with getting a new amp. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think
it's just like real amps too. The volume you do things at really tells you whether it's going to be bright or not.
It really matters. Is there a microscopic delay when using pedals? A delay at all? I mean, theoretically, yes, because it's an electric signal traveling somewhere.
And it has to go through converters, which inherently...
Yeah, there's got to be some time taken.
Yeah.
But
even Strymon pedals have a converter.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking milliseconds. But, but there's always a delay.
Yeah.
It's how well you can get used to it. It's not like an old pod where you could really feel the delay.
Right. Or it doesn't feel like the notes are kind of in the guitar. They're not under your fingers. How do you prepare for playing live?
The physical part of playing or my tone part of playing?
The tone part, probably.
I spend a lot of time at the venue. Mm-hmm. So, like, typically, if we're doing shows all the time, I don't do as much because I kind of get in a routine. But if it's like lately where we do one show every 2 weeks, I'm always trying stuff out at home and then trying to get that on the road so I can beta test it on the road, because that's always the true test. I don't like to put out profiles unless I can test ones similar or the ones that I'm putting out. So that involves me getting there before sound check and going through my performances, figure out which songs I can try a new amp on, throwing it on there, making sure everything's saved properly and all that. I mean, there's quite a bit of, there could be lots of footage of me just sitting on a chair in front of my Kemper rack before sound checks. I'm sure my sound man doesn't like it, but that's the cool thing is I can plug my ears right into the Kemper and kind of do it that way without bugging everybody.
It's good advice to get there and see how it sounds.
Yeah. And
I think for the church people, you have it easier than anybody.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Especially if you're there every week.
It's the same room. Yeah. See how it sounds. Go out there with a wireless unit. See how it sounds.
And I'll have my guitar tech just play chords or one of our other guitar techs to play it while I go out front. And usually I'm on a wireless, so I can do it myself. But
do you tune to the room ever, or do you let the board do that?
No, that's the sound guy.
Yeah.
My job is to make his job easy. So I'll check with him. Hey, are you EQing anything out of my guitar amp? And if you're taking it out on a regular basis, I'll think about taking it out. Right. Sometimes stuff may bother me, but if I think it sounds good out front, I won't change it.
More or less gain ever? Going up or down?
Yeah, it's funny when I'm off the road. this just happened. So when I'm off the road a bunch, my ears kind of heal a little bit, and so I'll start backing the gains down, and then once I get back on the road more, I end up turning the gains back to where they were.
Right.
Just because at home playing clean sounds nice and clean. You get that same sound on the road, and it feels a little wimpy.
It does.
You got to get it a little bit extra hair on it than you think it needs.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
And then it sort of comes out.
Yeah.
Cleanish.
Exactly.
Cleanish is the
cleanish. I've
cleanish
got a preset in my Helix called cleanish. So.
I have one of my rigs in the HW performance is cleanish.
You don't want I hear a lot of these amp demos on YouTube and stuff, and it's just like so clean. I'm like, do people really play with that much clean? Because I like to have. To me, you have no dynamics when it's that clean. You can beat it to death. Note doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
My favorite clean is where if you hit it really hard, it'll break up a little bit. But if you play soft, it's still very clean. Pete
Thorne's cleans are kind of you'll hear people kind of make this joke. He'll go, "Here's my clean tone."
And it's all dirty.
It's a basement on 5, right? Yeah. It's like
that's clean.
But he's
not in Nashville. No, that's not Nashville clean.
No, that's an LA clean.
Yeah,
that's a Hollywood clean. Well,
and then he says crunch. I'm like, that would be my lead tone. Your crunch tone.
But it's probably a lot of it's what informs your youth, probably, and your as a guitar player, what you think
my
of.
age.
Yeah, I think the Brown sound is his. You know what I mean? That's modded Plexi, modded Marshall is like, what's more than that? Like a Boogie maybe, or a Friedman, really hot rodded stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or like just more modern,
I hear stuff with like tons and tons of gain, and you lose all sense of dynamics with it. It's just, I don't know. I hear more raunchy, bad gain stuff on alt stations than I do on the metal stations.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. It's like, that's got so much gain, it's just fighting to get out. But
you get to a point where enough gain, it's like playing a different instrument.
It is.
There's the sort of the rules aren't applying anymore.
And I prefer, even just listening after having watched, Andy Wood's a phenomenal player.
Yeah.
His tone's great. Now, the only reason I left the show was because I couldn't hear him enough, because the only seats I could sit in were on the sides, and they weren't being hit by the PA. But when I walked to the middle of the room, I was like, oh, there it is. There's the guitar. And it sounded way good right there, but it sounded very muddy everywhere else. But
who was he playing with?
His own little band.
Okay, yeah.
Had a banjo player and a fiddle player that were doing all that super fast stuff with him. It was pretty cool.
He's like the shred country guy.
He is.
He really.
But I noticed even him, his tones are often too saturated for my personal taste. Because then when I go watch Josh Smith, and he's got that, is it clean? Is it dirty? It just sounds like an amp that's just pushed really hard, but not constant overdrive. And there's just more dynamics going on. There's more bloom to the note. There's more development of the tone, which I tend to prefer.
I think that's one of the intricacies of tube amps is that, like, the Dumble thing is like the mid-range is distorting, the high end isn't really distorting.
Yeah.
And that's like kind of some of the sound, and that's, I think, where you hear all that life.
Yeah.
And the Josh Smith is a good example, like, especially when he's playing a Strat or a Tele or something, it's like, I'm not sure that I've seen him play anything else, but when he's playing that, the touch plays into it, and then you get the Strat tone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
He plays huge strings too, so even though he's on a Tele most of the time, he's got 12 for a high E. He's got big manly strings. You think my guitar is manly?
Well, I think any guitar where when I breathe on the trim and it doesn't move, it's too manly for me.
That's funny. I said, just grab it, push it down.
I know, they're all touching the body. I can't get used to it. Well, you hungry yet?
Did we bore people to death yet?
I'm sure we did.
Okay.
I'm sure we did.
I feel like we didn't talk enough about Kemper stuff, but
well, they need to put out more details and more video. We'll get it in our hands, and then we'll talk about it forever.
Now, another cool thing on the new Rig Manager, just to go back, you will be able to save. You'll be able to see your stored presets, which you can't do now. So all the cabs, all your effects presets, and all that, they will show up in Rig Manager under the type. It'll say type effect or type cab, and you can go through and see all of those, and then export just the presets to people. If you want to say, here's how I set my delays.
Right.
So in the past, you would have just included in a rig, but now you can
Right.
to get the individual presets.
I think what's really cool about that is now you don't have to, right now you have to build it all in performances, which is great to do a whole performance. But there's definitely a lot of cool verbs, A lot of times I put up videos of just, here's a cool verb, and I got to throw it in a rig or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be really good. Someone could just grab that, put it into their performance. That is something that's been missing, and I didn't even think of it.
Yeah.
They thought of it.
Let's think a lot.
They're thinking of a lot of stuff. I was showing you that one remote, 2 Kempers.
That's pretty cool.
And I've only set it up like twice, 2 or 3 times. But as I started playing around, I was like, they really did think this through.
Yeah.
It's doable.
And just the untying gain from volume. That's the biggest thing that I have a pet peeve with in every other unit. Mm-hmm. I just want to change the gain. I don't have to go chasing if it's now quieter or louder than it was.
Yeah.
Just so much smarter.
It would be great to even, if that's just an option on units in the future. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
If for whatever reason people don't like it, just...
Well, some of these Line 6 models, they were created by different people. You can tell. I mean, some are... The Mesa Lone Star is way louder. You have to keep the master volume at 5. Mm-hmm. The whatever Vox, you have to turn the master all the way up or you're not going to hear the model.
Right.
There's just a lot of variation. Could spend a little time leveling those out.
A lot of
and then having... At least Fractal has a 0 gain, unity gain setting. You kind of know if you're around that, it's not boosting or cutting.
Right. That is useful.
Yeah.
Well, let's see.
Did we kill another one?
Right. I think we killed another one. All right. I've been HW.
MBritt.
HW.
Kemper. Out. Kemper out.
Perfect, man.